Welcome to the Creator Show. My name is David, and I've been working with creators worldwide to help them monetize their knowledge. Today, we have Nick Rolnick joining us to talk about his experiences as a course creator. Nick, also known as the Human Performance Mechanic, is a world-class physical therapist and performance enhancement specialist who continues to distinguish himself as a leading international authority in blood flow restriction (BFR). Nick has also had an interest in sports and performance from his days as captain of his college baseball team at Franklin and Marshall, where he achieved all conference honors and competed in men's natural physique competitions during his graduate studies. Since graduating with an MS in health promotion management from American University, Nick realized his love for fitness and with his passion to help others by earning a doctorate in physical therapy from Columbia University with honors. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, quickly want to talk about the BFR Pros, which is what you currently run. What is the BFR method?
In short, BFR or blood flow restriction training involves placing a cuff, much like a blood pressure cuff, but it's specialized on the proximal most part of an extremity. And as a result of that application of the cuff, inflated to a particular pressure, depending on the application, we can get the same benefits as if we were lifting heavy weights, but using little to no weights at all. And that's due to the unique environment that a temporary restriction of blood flow can have while exercising. And this has rapidly gained popularity in the last decade or so, and the growth is exponential, particularly in the field of rehabilitation, where individuals that are coming to my practice are experiencing pain or have an inability to lift heavy weights for one way or another, or both. And we can use BFR to help them get back to the activities that they love quicker than other traditional therapeutic interventions.
Got it. And when we talk about BFR Pros, how did that come about? Or how did you go about creating BFR Pros?
That's actually a pretty long story. In short, without getting into all the details, I began way back in 2015, 2016, talking about blood flow restriction and reading research and posting research on blood flow restriction, and kind of gained a social media following. And that turned into an invitation to help create a course for a BFR education company that was selling a product. And while I do like their product, I quickly found that there was numerous ways to do blood flow restriction training, and you didn't need to necessarily use one specific product. And out of that knowledge and desire to have what we call an unbiased approach, meaning that I don't have any financial obligations to sell you a particular cuff or sell my clients a particular cuff. We are all about education. So I left that company and formed the BFR Pros, and we've been, for over 5 years now, in giving blood flow restriction training education to physical therapists in North America as well as in Europe.
Wonderful. And you said you started with creating a course for BFR, right? And that's how it kind of started. Now, when you did that, you obviously would have had several ideas in your head about how to go about it. Was this course created, more or less for like an in-person kind of a session, or was it more? Did you think of digital when you started?
So we didn't think of digital when we started. I was fortunate to help write the company that I originally was onboarded with. I helped them write their BFR education curriculum. And then I also took another course from another education provider. And I had those kind of in my head about how they presented the information, or how it was received by the people, because then I was teaching for this company using the education that I taught. And I started to see, along with my own interpretation of the blood flow restriction training literature and my own clinical experience, how to effectively communicate the science behind the power of BFR that was kind of in the same vein, but a little bit divergent to that. So that's where the initial BFR Pros course kind of took shape. And then we were book solid in 2020, and we were tossing around the idea, and I mean, my dad and I, Marty Rolnick, he's kind of takes care of the back end logistics for the BFR Pros. We've been tossing around the idea of bringing some form of digital product into the marketplace, because I didn't want to teach every single weekend. I didn't want to do that. I enjoy teaching 1 to 2 times a month. It allows me to stay fresh in my public speaking skills, as well as being able to travel and whatnot. But going digital was a way that we could reach a larger audience, and in conjunction with that, grow the brand. But we never really had the impetus to do that until COVID hit. And when COVID hit, it was like a do or die for my business, because we were now no longer generating revenue from the in-person courses. And as a result of that, it was like, okay, well, it's do or die. If we're not going to do this, then we're going to let the company go under. And I didn't want that. And so I used COVID to really, like, I spent a long time on this course. I moved back in with my parents. I was living in New York City, went back to Greenwich, where my whole family kind of moved back in for that 6-month period. But I spent April through really July, 6 days a week, 7 to 10 hours a day. It was a lot of work. But I wrote that course, and I took the best pieces of our in-person course that we then had from the other 2 prior courses that I've attended or was teaching for, and we distilled it into the absolute need to know information regarding the safe and effective practice of blood flow restriction training. And because I'm also heavily involved in the research myself, at that point I was a published author. Since then, I've published 20 more times and still going. I kind of had a trajectory for where I saw the industry going, and I wrote the course so it's quote unquote evergreen, in that we're able to create a product that is of high production value, and knowing that this material is going to be relevant for, almost up to a decade before we really would need to revise that of any way, shape, or form. And so we launched in September of 2020, and the course is just as relevant as it was 2.5 years ago.
Right. So when you speak about COVID hitting everyone and the pandemic happening, ideally when you look at the changes you've had to make, right? You had to make those changes to go digital, to change your entire approach on how to, take this forward. What were some of the challenges that came with, being able to move? I know there will be a lot of them, but if you could maybe, because this kind of helps a lot of the course creators who are, in a similar frame of mind, who are trying to make that, jump into digital, right? So what would be some of the challenges that came across for you?
There was a lot.
Right.
And it was a great experience. I think the first challenge was really understanding what I'm trying to communicate to the audience.
Right.
If you don't have a clear direction, right, you can start out with an A to Z, right? But you can't just then, A is like the beginning, Z is the end. You need to then fill in B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and you need to have a clear progression from one part of the course to the other, and it continues to build upon itself. So the first challenge was creating a narrative that was both engaging but also informative, and was able to layer on and ultimately be able to, in the later parts of the course, be able to draw on the principles and ideas that were discussed in the beginning of the course. And that took a lot of going to the drawing board, really mapping out on pieces of paper and looking at ideas and whatnot. I think that, and that's been the glue for our course and why people have really enjoyed it so much. I think, our average course rating, if you would recommend it to a peer, is like 8.9. And we've had 500 plus people take the course. So that to me is a really important feedback for enjoyment. And then the second piece is how we were going to present this material, right? You can have the greatest content, but if you're not creating an environment for easy facilitation of learning, then you're failing in the digital platform. So it was like, how can we make this as engaging as possible, knowing that this is mostly a passive learning experience? And we've built upon that in our additional modules of creating more engagement. But how we decided to do that in this course was really spend a lot of money, unfortunately, on production value. So I'm there on screen with you. It's text coming up, images, animations, and those are challenges in and of itself, because you want to be able to communicate a specific idea. And sometimes, more times than not, we actually had to commission graphic artists to create these designs for us so we can communicate a specific point to our audience. And that was a ton of work in and of itself, because you really only have one shot to make a first impression. And if we're not able to get that information conveyed effectively, then we're failing as educators. And then the third is everything that goes on in the back end. And I was responsible for helping classify, going through the script in terms of when animations come on, when they go off, like timing, everything. But there's a whole back end where the audience never really sees, that we have to have everything in folders. And it's a lot of organizing on the back end to be able to then say for our video animators, hey, all the information you need for this particular portion is in this folder, and you can go here for that, that information. And so it's a lot of organization. And that's why for us, it really took a lot of time, because we were so meticulous in every step of the process, knowing that this was going to be a piece of content that was going to define our business and also be one of the products that really is the representation of what is the standard of online BFR education. And since then, we've been licensing our course. We licensed it in Canada. We had a relationship in Europe, and now Europe in French, which translated. It's going to be translated into Italian. It is translated into Spanish. So this content, we kind of had a global vision for. So that's why we were so meticulous, because we then go to our licensees, hand that course off, and their job, everything that they need is there for them. So it's a complex, it's not an easy process by any means, but it is extremely rewarding when you are at the other end, you're at the Z, and you look back and you're like, wow, like I have something that I'm really proud of, and it has the potential to create passive revenue, which is the ultimate, for me, the ultimate goal is being able to do things I love that aren't necessarily work related and still be able to be compensated on the back end for passion projects like this BFR course.
So you speak about licenses, and you speak about being able to expand this in that direction, right? So I did notice on your website, from being from offering this course to a lot of folks, you also happen to be a CE provider, right? Where you do give credit for some of the hours that people undertake these courses. Now, I'm sure there would be a lot of aspirants who would want to kind of follow that path, right? To be able to start this way, the way you did with BFR, and then be able to kind of expand and become a continuing education provider as well. What kind of advice would you have for someone who's not at that step one, but more at getting ready to move into that step two or step three?
Yeah, so the CEU process is a big hassle. We're lucky that we have an internal team. Her name is Erica Marcano. Throw her name out there. She's wonderful. She's really helped us navigate the CEU system for athletic trainers and physical therapists. They're all different. You have some providers that can help make the process a little bit easier that we use. So it's a lot of organizational, documentation and making sure that, whatever content that you're providing has evidence to back it up and you're accomplishing specific learning objectives. The making a lesson plan or creating any sort of content has to have some direction. And the CEU process goes to help narrow the chance or limit the chance that the content that's being produced is going to be directionless and not have any sort of clinical utility. So there needs to be a thought process behind it. And did I when I was creating the course, did I think of all the things that I needed for the CEU process? No. But when you think about creating content for rehab providers, which is our primary audience, although fitness professionals do take our course, they're a very little minority. It's mostly physical therapists. If you are saying, you're providing what is the history of the modality or the exercise approach like BFR? What are the indications for its use? Why is it important? What are the safety things that we need to worry out? And what is the implementation, right? All of those things are asked in some way, shape, or form in the CEU application process and provides the justification for creators to get their courses approved. So it wasn't an easy process in the sense that I didn't have to change anything about my course because I already had a thoughtful progression for the lesson plan, but it was a lot of work, and it's not unfortunately like the cheapest process either. I think there could be efficiencies that can be made to make the process easier, but at the end of the day, physical therapists, rehab providers, athletic trainers, whoever the audience is, they tend to have some CEU dollars. So being able to apply those CEU dollars to digital content, if they can't make it out to an in-person course, having CEUs makes that process. You basically remove a barrier to their decision-making process because they're like, all right, well, I only have $1,500 to spend. Oh, this course is going to cost me $400. All right, well, am I still going to get CEUs on it? Okay, boom. Like, because everyone needs CEUs to keep up their licensure in the United States, at least. So, so it's a really nice asset to have.
Absolutely. So, with now talking about the virtual coaching platforms that are out there, how do you see the coaching industry changing in the coming years?
I mean, I think we're all going into a digital world, So staying in the physical space is probably not going to give the best return on investment. I think for our time, at least, I think that's only for a very, very, very select few. But for the majority of us, having a virtual coaching platform where we could manage multiple people in the comfort of our own home, I work a lot in my pajamas, believe it or not. Like just being at the computer, doing stuff, and the flexibility that it provides to be able to do that is really nice. So I think for us, especially, I think that's an area that the BFR pros needs to focus on a little bit more in 2023 and 2024 is really expanding the virtual coaching, the BFR mentorship aspects. But I do agree the future is digital.
Your thoughts on nowadays, if you look at it, at the AI, right? Is there going to be a big factor when it comes to digital platforms? Maybe the way you create your courses, the way you want to kind of build content.
I think AI is going to revolutionize everything we do. And it's either going to be an extreme benevolent force or an extreme malevolent force. I think there's going to really be a no in between. And I don't know if that's grim or that's very optimistic, but um, but anyways, like I do believe that if we take the necessary steps, AI for a long term is going to be an extremely benevolent way in which we can really harness technology to be able to get a lot of things done much quicker. I think that for certain aspects, AI might be really, really, really beneficial. But AI is also at least as it currently stands, synthesizing opinions from data that currently exist. And I still think that when data doesn't exist, it still needs the guidance from us to be able to really map it out. And I think that for a content production perspective, AI is going to be a no-brainer. I mean, you can pump out, like I can pump out like 10 blood flow restriction training articles in like an hour to 2 hours, where it would normally have taken me, 5 to 10 hours to write. Being able to then integrate more of the evidence outside of what the AI has written it's huge. And I think that that's going to also translate into course production. I don't know necessarily the best way. I do think that it's really cool, and something that I'm going to be looking into with our next module is using AI to create images without having to hire a graphic artist. I think that that's going to be a nice experiment, particularly because blood flow restriction is new, but it's not like something that's so well known and out there, that it's going to be interesting to see what AI does if I give it a specific situation that I wanted to create a graphic, an image for. But I think that unfortunately the byproduct is graphic artists are going to be out of their jobs. It's so easy for me to go and just type in a prompt and get an image now. But I'm actually really excited about that, because that took the hardest that was the hardest part of creating our on-demand course, is getting the images and animations right, and being able to really put a specific prompt in it and know that, listen, like if we're able to do that for fractions of the cost is really, really, really exciting. I don't think it's going to impact my ability to write a script and kind of drive the process, but certainly from the interactivity in engagement perspective, I see AI being a game changer.
Right, because I believe it does play a big part in the creative field, right? Like you said, with graphic design or even with some part of content. Again, if you know how to drive that, that can be used, I guess, you know, in a more positive way, I guess. But um, I believe when it comes to digital platforms, course creation platforms using AIs for maybe early course creators to recommend them, on what kind of course they should be looking to create or something to kind of get started that step one journey. I think that's something that will definitely help them as well, right?
No,
So
I agree. I think it gives them a blueprint.
correct. So we've spoken a lot about the challenges. We've spoken about your journey so far. One thing I know my viewers would definitely love to hear is, the high points. Any high point you could maybe talk about while you're on this path.
Yeah, I mean, it's seeing something that you've worked so hard for come to fruition and getting that positive reinforcement about the thousands of hours, because it was in the order of, you look at all the research that I've read, all my clinical experience, and the time prepping for the course, it was a long time. And listen, like, you can probably create courses in a lot quicker. I'm just very meticulous in how I wanted that information to be presented, so I probably worked too hard. But it is rewarding when people take your course and they're like, wow, that was the best course, that was the best online course that I've taken, or you really were an effective educator. And that has to do with another challenge, which I didn't even talk about, but that's speaking on camera and being able to communicate not only with my voice, but with, body language and whatnot. But I think that that also is a high point, because that puts you in the midst of it. That's practice that you need to have, and that has translated into my ability to publicly, speak publicly. And it's not just strictly related to, like, the highs are not just strictly related to, oh, I created a course, but it translates into other aspects of your life. But looking back, right, I have a product now that's in the ether of the digital space for eternity. And that is the cool thing, that I've left my mark in some way, shape, or form on the world, and I am making a difference, however big or however small.
Right. One last question. Your advice for upcoming creators and coaches.
If you have an idea, just go do it. I mean, I think a lot of people are hesitant to throw their hat in the ring for whatever reason. Fear is a big detractor. And the hesitancy to, what I just said in terms of how we approached it, which we spent a lot of money on this course. And not a lot of creators have the opportunity to spend a lot of money. You don't need to spend a lot of money. If you have an idea and you want to get it out there and you want to get your name out there, you can create a digital product for very little cost, and use the revenue that you would generate from that digital product to then make it even better for the next iteration. And you can keep on going that way, and you are able to get your name out there and create some passive revenue without any sort of serious cost burden. I think that's the biggest advice that I have, is just do it and see what happens, and understand that there's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, but the ups are so much more worth it. And recognize, much like I tell my patients, when you're rehabilitating your back, you're going to have flare-ups. Like, it's a guaranteed thing in low back rehab. It's how you deal with those flare-ups or those down times, like the troubles in communicating an idea from script to video. But once you have that click, and that click is like, oh, I get it, I can be able to communicate that idea. It's such a good dopamine rush, and you feel so good, because it's like, wow, you just now solved a problem, and then on to the next one.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Nick. It was really wonderful having you on the show. And for all of my viewers out there, if you do want to check out what Nick does, go to thebfrpros.com and you'll be able to get more information on that.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Nick.